So I was studying, I was actually studying human rights at the University Latina in Costa Rica, San Jose, as a study abroad with U of L. And I had been there a couple months already, and my little sister, who's in high school, decided to come stay with me for spring break. So we took her to the beach, me and a couple friends, it was also my spring break, or it was like Holy Week. And so we didn't have any classes or anything. So we went to the Limon province, which I know now is apparently more dangerous than the others, but didn't really have a clear view of that. My study abroad program did not cover that, had no clue. You know, a couple people have said, you know, be careful if you go to Puerto Viejo, and, you know, just watch your stuff, sort of conversation. But we had been there a few times already and had no issues. It was a really nice beach, so that's where we went. And my little sister ended up getting sick from the food, so she was in the hostel sleeping. We all went out to dinner, and as we were walking back, we got about 50 yards from the hostel, and a car comes speeding by, like hits the brakes, and just like this guy gets out, and he has, you know, bandana across his face, and just pounds me in the head, and I just like go down like in the side of the head. And like in the moment, I had been like in this deep conversation with the girl I was walking next to, and then so we were walking two together, and then one of the other girls was a couple feet ahead of us because you couldn't walk together because they have no sidewalks and the cars just zoom by. So I just get hit, and I don't even know what's going on. Like it was so quick that I was just like laying in the grass, and I hear the other girl screaming, and then this guy just like picks me up and starts to like shove me in the backseat of the car. And so like my only instinct was like just like stay out of his car. So I like had like one foot against the back door, like the outside of the car, and I was just like really struggling. And he just like keeps hitting me. But the other girls at this point had like run back and were like screaming, and they were like trying to get me away. And one of the girls just like takes my whole body and shoves me like into the ditch, far enough away from him to get me away from him. And at that point he grabbed her. And you know, they were struggling, and I'm still like blacked out because I got, you know, punched in the face. But just like start trying to like get up and run. But we were so close to the hostel. That was bizarre that they even, you know, we were 50 yards. So, and they had cameras and everything. So me and the other girl would just take off running and screaming to get people to come out of the hostel, and so they would leave or you know, whatever. And so this guy ends up like just basically just beating the crap out of all three of us by the time it's over with. But you know, we were really fighting for it. So we had the owner of the hostel had, by that point we like called him out, and so he ran out, and the guys at that point got like a couple last kicks on this girl, and then just get in the car and speed off. And so of course we're like all like torn up, like still trying to figure out what just happened. And the owner of the hostel was like, get the girls out of sight, get them out of sight. He was like, don't tell anyone they're here, put them upstairs. And so at this point I'm like, whatever, I'm going to get my sister, like she was sleeping in the hostel. And so I go find her, and then like the other two girls are just missing, and I'm like, we couldn't find them anywhere. And the other people that from my university that were there were all just like filling people in, trying to figure out what's going on. And the owner of the hostel had taken these two girls to the police station while I was getting my sister, and they put them in the waiting room with the guys who had attacked us. Because the guys who had attacked us, apparently, I guess the police were really corrupt. And so they put them in the waiting room, and from what I can understand, the police were yelling at the girls in Spanish. And they were both fluent. way better than my Spanish was. But so they were just yelling at the girls, and like they were like sort of shoving them around, like really intimidating them. And then they were like, oh, you want to identify your attackers, who were sitting like right next to them, you know, like smirking at them, like licking their lips, like doing all kinds of sort of things. And so they're like, you know, obviously scared. And so the police let the guys out who are waiting in their truck outside of the police station. And then this is about 10 o'clock at night. We were attacked at about 8:30, which in Costa Rica gets dark at 6 p.m. all the time. So it's really hard to be, you know, be walking, even if you're walking a mile, you're going to be walking a mile in the dark. And in this area, they didn't have as many taxis as in the city, so that's why we were originally walking. But so then the police are like, okay, you should walk home, like 10:30 at night, 10:30 at night. And the guys are sitting outside the truck. They're like, we're not doing it. So, you know, they ended up somehow getting someone to come get them at this station and like get around these guys somehow. And so we call the people who are in our study abroad program, and they're like, those guys are notorious. Like, they are part of the human trafficking gang in Costa Rica. Like, that's the area, and everyone confirmed it. They're like, we know who they are. We got them on camera. Everyone knows who they are, and no one's going to mess with them. And they were like, your hostile people might even kick you out because they don't want you there, so that they're going to come back and get you because you pissed them off or made them angry. And so we basically hid the whole night. And our study abroad director called the next day. They're like, you don't want to walk down the streets, like, don't. So we had to like sneak to the bus station and like get out of town as soon as possible. And it was just sort of really bad experience. But, you know, besides that, a couple of us had mild concussions and no passports because they took them. But other than that, you know. About it. So not as like a precautionary, like, be careful. The program I was studying at the International Center for Human Rights, so we were studying like human trafficking as it relates to the drug trade. So basically the idea that with the big drug industry, it's so easy for other illicit behaviors like human trafficking for them to engage in multiple things because it's all underground, and they have such a good a network for, you know, certain types of consumers. So we studied a lot about that. We studied a lot about gang violence as it relates to human trafficking. We studied about, you know, some of the different gangs in Central and South America. But there was no, like, this could happen to you. I think it's something that you think of as like a really far off idea, and you never really connect it to yourself. And honestly, it was really surprising that we were attacked, because like the movie Taken gets wrong, is it's typically not like foreigners necessarily. It's a lot of times low income young women who no one's going to complain if they disappear, you know. And they have so many of these women, they take and, you know, inject with drugs and move them across borders, and, you know, Border Patrol are taking, you know, turning their cheeks. And that's, I think, in my case, I think we were surprised that we were attacked by a human trafficking gang, because as Americans we're much likely for someone to notice, you know, whereas so many women, you know, will go missing and they'll threaten their families, and there's nothing you can do about it, you know. Well, I think definitely the broad answer to that is we have to change the way that our society values women, because, you know, in some cultures, the fact that a woman is, you know, thought of mostly for like sexual pleasure for a man, or, you know, whatever, that may be, or the idea that you can, you know, buy a woman's body is really detrimental to women in general, but also really feeds into this idea that we can that women are disposable. And I think that's one way we really need to start raising awareness about some of the ways that women are oppressed, and I think that's definitely a starting point. I know there are lots of conversations about whether the decriminalization of prostitution or making it, completely illegal and prohibited are two different ways. There's definitely two sides of that argument about whether maybe, like, for example, if prostitution is illegal and women are still doing it, then it's not regulated. So if they go missing, there's no like system for realizing that they're missing, and also like realizing who's responsible for that. But also, if prostitution is legal, then isn't that just feeding back into that whole cycle of women are used for sex, So there's two definitely valid arguments, but I think it's hard. It's really a hard conversation to have.